Welcome to the NonProfit Voice, a podcast series brought to you by NonProfit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we're going to sit down with leaders of nonprofit organizations, the people responsible for paving the way for our sector, along with key technology strategy partners who are transforming our industry. Here at the NonProfit Voice, we'll have refreshing conversations in which we will all learn more about the convergence of nonprofit and technology. Be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website to find more episodes of the NonProfit Voice. And you can download all of the NonProfit Voice episodes on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. We will have all the links down below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the NonProfit Voice. I'm Newty, Editor-in-Chief of NonProfit Pro, and I'll be your host for today's episode. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today. As we have all seen, 2020 has been nothing short of surprising. The onset of COVID-19 and the pandemic that followed has driven nonprofits to move their fundraising efforts from in-person to online. And as we enter the busiest fundraising season of the year for many nonprofits, it's important to understand how organizations can quickly pivot and adapt to this new environment for a sustainable future and continued success. In today's podcast, I'm joined by two very special guests, Cara Newby, Strategic Director of Account Management at American Cancer Society, and Bryna Dilman, Director of Panorama at FrontStream. And in a few minutes, we're going to get into what effective tactics nonprofits need when launching a virtual event. And specifically, we're going to get an insider's look at ACS's Fit to Be Cancer-Free Challenge, a virtual event in its third year. So welcome to the show, Cara and Bryna. How are you both doing today?
Good, thank you so much.
Awesome, happy to hear it. So usually at the beginning of our podcast, I introduce our speakers and I let our audience get to know you guys a little bit more. So to kick it off, Cara, can you tell us more about your background and how you found yourself at ACS, and of course about ACS itself?
Yeah, so I've been with the American Cancer Society for just over 12 years now. So I've had quite a few different roles here. I actually started out as a volunteer for the American Cancer Society. I was working for a local magazine and volunteering for the society. Just like many people who've been affected, my family and friends have been affected by cancer. And so it was a cause that was close to my heart. So after several years of volunteering, my staff partner told me about a position that was open, and it seemed right up in line with what I would like to do. So I joined the society, and I've been here ever since. So the American Cancer Society is a very old organization, and we are working to save lives every day against cancer. We work on research and programs and services, and it's just a place that really, for me, has been really helpful for even my own family and my own friends who have been able to benefit from the research that we've done here. So, I've been here for, I think, 12 years.
Awesome. And what a wonderful story. You found an organization that you really connected with the mission, volunteered, and then eventually became part of its staff. It's great to hear. So Bryna, tell us more about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me here. I've always actually had an interest in the nonprofit sector, and I've wanted to work for a greater cause. So during my postgraduate degree in corporate communications and public relations, I was part of a program where I was fortunate enough to be placed at a job for the last 2 months of my degree. And that job was working at a small nonprofit. And it really resonated with me and aligned with my core values. So after that, I decided I wanted to pursue a career in the nonprofit sector and really just give back to my community. So I've been in the nonprofit industry for, I would say, almost 20 years with incredible roles at Breast Cancer Foundation, Kids Health Phone, Multiple Sclerosis Society, but most recently, I was at Cystic Fibrosis Canada as the Executive Director of National Events and Data Strategy and Integration. So I led their strategic direction and growth of all national signature events, but most importantly, I specialized in emerging trends in fundraising, particularly studying data analytics, digital and virtual fundraising. So these experiences really helped me develop a deeper understanding of the industry and its competitive landscape, which kind of led me to my current role at FrontStream as the director of Panorama, where Panorama is a product specifically built to help organizations raise funds. And because of my long history and in-depth knowledge of the fundraising industry, my role has been helping support a product that organizations can use to be successful in raising funds for their mission. So it's been a great opportunity to really utilize a lot of the knowledge I've developed over my career.
Oh, awesome. And you have a tremendous background in the nonprofit sector, and now you're carrying it on to a company that you really care about that works with nonprofits. That's excellent.
Thank you.
All right. So, I mean, Bryna, before we get into, the juicy bits of the conversation today, I want to talk about just like what virtual events looked like before the pandemic in 2020, and if there are any trends you saw that needed improvement.
Definitely. I mean, the state of virtual events before 2020 was interesting because the use of technology has really been consistent and growing throughout the world. So we see this innovation in our lives transitioning from online shopping, online banking, socializing, and most importantly, online giving. So there's been a steady increase in funds raised online, and we've seen that many nonprofits have been leveraging digital tools in order to really remain competitive in this saturated market. So organizations who started to incorporate virtual events saw more opportunities to raise money because it enabled their supporters to engage with the campaign in their own time, but while still supporting a cause that they care about. And we've seen this work as a great model, especially for some mid to smaller nonprofits that don't necessarily have staff and resources to host an in-person walk, run, or auction. So these virtual events were low cost, and the organizer takes a lot of the logistics and planning, freeing up staff time to engage and support their fundraisers and their donors. So I'd say I saw, 3 top trends, before COVID kind of came into play. And one, I would say that a lot of organizations were looking to be more data-driven and technology-minded. So a lot were purchasing technology that actually provided value and power and analytics to support smarter fundraising approaches, to really just understand who their audience actually was and be able to communicate effectively to them. Another huge trend is the rise of online fundraising. It really is a significant source, not only for acquiring new donors, but engaging those younger audiences who are constantly or growing up online. And another trend I would say in the top 3 were, I was seeing a lot of organizations really, they were already starting to diversify their fundraising options to include virtual programs. Virtual events really don't leave out those who have busy schedules or who are not in the city, because a lot of mainstream events end up taking place in main city cores. So it had shown to be door openers. So nonprofits have been adapting to these kind of events to be more inclusive. And then obviously innovative organizations, just like American Cancer Society, they've been leveraging virtual events to engage with employees, connecting with larger audiences that might not have been available in person. And with the rise of virtual fitness fundraisers and activity tracking, there's the ability to participate in an activity that not only gives back in terms of fundraising, but improves your health. So really activating through a virtual fundraising tool. So it's been incredible to see these trends already start to rise. In terms of improvement, well, we've seen there's a lot of data that shows us that each generation engages and interacts with charities in their own meaningful way. So I would say fundraising programs really should start to be tailored to those giving preferences. As I mentioned, there's a generation that lives online, and their expectations, I would say, of user experience and personalization are high. So there's an opportunity for nonprofits to use their platform to create a portfolio and a variety of ways for their supporters to donate, participate through gamification, online auctions, donate now links, etc. Just using a full suite of digital solutions to really engage with each of those audience. So I would say that those that embrace change and diversify their fundraising options really can succeed in their fundraising efforts. And those who stay on top of the current trend tend to see that advantage over their peers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think it's important for nonprofits to understand that they need to adapt to the times and be able to innovate in order to stay relevant to their constituents, because if they're not doing that, another nonprofit with the same mission is probably doing the same thing, and it's going to give them better user experience. It's going to give them more personal connections with the organization. So I love what you said about, making sure you're adapting to those giving preferences. And I also agree that digital, before 2020, before COVID, digital was already on the up in nonprofits. As slow as the adoption has been with technology, I felt like we were at a point where we were finally gaining traction, and a lot of nonprofits were finally, incorporating more technology solutions into their organization. But then the pandemic hit, and this really forced organizations who were already innovating and who haven't been innovating to look at technology solutions out there to make sure that their fundraising continues, that their in-person fundraising events are able to be switched to online, or else their fundraising completely, is at a halt. So what changes did you see organizations making, Bryna, that helped them remain, afloat during the pandemic?
Well, I would say the most successful organizations were those that were really able to mobilize their resources and adapt and expand their approaches. So some organizations who had scheduled in-person events not only were able to quickly pivot to virtual walks, runs, rides, but expanded their fundraising efforts, such as, in addition, creating relief fund links to their websites, or we saw organizations rebrand their donation pages on their home pages. We saw some organizations who had live auctions and they had to switch to online auctions, and it was a huge success. They asked donors or attendees who may have purchased tickets to the event to consider honoring the purchase as a donation to the organization. And we saw really clever auction items pop up that were relevant to the times. I think one organization auctioned off a roll of toilet paper, and when a board member saw the bid for this, they matched the original donation and doubled it for a second roll of toilet paper. So a lot of these crafty ideas are really what sparked great success when they used innovative methods to increase virtual exposure also for sponsors. A lot of sponsors get that recognition on the day of. So some organizations created a page on their website where participants could still access sponsor vouchers and keep those sponsors engaged. So I would say that organizations who promoted a variety of virtual fundraising options really helped them not only stay afloat, but we saw in some cases really meet and exceed fundraising goals. I mean, having a platform that allows you to create several digital options and the ability to not only build a virtual event, run, ride, but an online auction or mobile giving or these online donation campaigns, really it can leverage their fundraising capacity and I would say extend their reach to a wider audience and give them the ability to raise more. It was really inspiring to see these nonprofits face these challenges head on and find such creative and innovative ways to ensure that their mission work would survive in these challenging times.
I love that example about the toilet paper. I think that's such a clever way, especially because, yeah, you're right. For me personally, in Philadelphia, I couldn't find toilet paper when it was like the height of the pandemic, and people rely on that. It was an essential. So I definitely, just during the height of everything, I really saw organizations be really creative in their tactics, and it was really great to see. So Cara, I'm curious with ACS, what changes did you guys make to, pivot for the pandemic?
Yeah, so COVID-19 really could not have hit. I mean, there's no good time, right, for something like that to hit, but it really could not have hit at a worse time in the year for the American Cancer Society. It impacted over 2,000 live events that we were having that take place during that early time frame of the year, from golf events, gala
Wow.
events, Relay for Life events. And so, there was a challenge for us. And, obviously, over the years, peer-to-peer fundraising for live events has already been kind of on the decline for several years. And we've seen gaming and esports have, continued to lead the evolution of virtual events. And so because you can do these events, anywhere around the world, you don't really have to be in a physical place. And we knew that with Fit to Be and with the platform that we were using and with FrontStream, that we were really uniquely set up already to kind of look and pivot and make some changes. And so, we already had Fit to Be scheduled. We had that scheduled in April. Clearly that was not the focus for some of these companies during that time. So we moved that out to July so that we could still have it and have it be truly successful. We created new online events. We took some of those galas and we combined them. And to Bryna's point, we had events that were going to be in person for gala events, and instead we had the auctions online. And so they still raised a great amount of money. We still had people attending virtual gala events, which, that's very unique. A gala event is not intended to be done virtually, but we made the switch over to that. We are looking at things for our fall events and how will we continue to do that for 2020, because we will not be having any of those in-person events for 2020. Our population and a lot of our participants are cancer survivors. So we have to truly be conscious of the fact that a lot of them are immune compromised. And so to ask those people to come out to large events, it's just not feasible. Even to come out to a smaller event of even, a few hundred people, it's really not feasible. And we want to ensure their safety as best as we can. So now our challenge is really breaking through that virtual event clutter and making sure there's no fatigue, and ensuring that what we're providing to them in the virtual space is unique to them, and it allows them to have that unique feel to our events, where other events, hopefully they'll have their own unique feel that's specific to them and their participants. And so that's kind of what we've been looking at, pivoting and then ensuring that the experience is there, the experience that they've known to come and love, and the camaraderie and the community of it all. So still being able to provide that in a virtual way.
Awesome. So, ACS has been for decades now, it's been ahead of the curve with peer-to-peer events, kind of leading the way. But like you said, the past few years, it has been declining. So I wanted to bring it back to, it's Fit to Be Cancer-Free Challenge, the virtual event that we referenced in the beginning of this podcast. And I know you talked a little bit about it already, but can you share more about the initial decision to make this particular event a virtual one from the beginning?
Yeah, so originally it was built to be a virtual event, and it was really intended to connect our C-level executives from Fortune 1000 companies. So obviously those executives are all over the country. They're not just in one particular market. And so in order to really have something that they can participate in, feel good about, create awareness around, and also participate with others at their high level, we had to have something that could be virtual. And so that's really kind of where the thought process came from, to have it be initially a virtual event. And then from that, participating in that and having these executives, they had such a great time, their employees became engaged, and as we we saw it begin to evolve in something where we could further engage their employees. So in 2020, we opened it up and had an employee challenge. So that was something that was new this year. It was a bit of a challenge because it was initially supposed to kick off, as I mentioned, in April, and we pushed it to July. But we had a 3-week challenge with their employees, and it was a huge success, so much so that a lot of our partners who participated are going to continue in that virtual health space with our partners, continuing to do something like this year round. They're looking at doing other campaigns with us where we fundraise with them. So it really truly was engaging for them and turned out to be a great success and really beneficial for us to expand it from beyond just the leadership to the entire employee population.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations. It's been a hard year, so it's heartening to hear that your virtual went really well this year. So Bryna, let's just talk about virtual events and its path pre and post COVID. Like, do you think this is going to be, air quotes, the new normal and the way of the future for peer-to-peer fundraising?
Definitely. Well, first, congrats, Cara, to you and your team as well. I think that's an incredible milestone, and it's so impressive to see such engagement. But yeah, I think even just based on that, with the influx of new technologies and the demand to really digitally, I would say, engage supporters in a more personalized way, many nonprofits, again, we said, have been rethinking and restructuring traditional events to include these virtual fundraising opportunities. And these trends are actually important because they all really point, I would say, to the need for nonprofits to create campaigns that put power in their supporters' hands. Data continues to show us people want to fundraise, and it's important that the nonprofit industry provide their audience with opportunities and tools to support their cause. So I would say virtual fundraising is here to stay just due to its ability to drive greater donations, attract new supporters from far and wide, and reduce operational costs. By embracing these emerging trends, nonprofits really can potentially quickly recoup some of that revenue that might have otherwise been lost. And there's an opportunity to really continue to build on the momentum that everybody has poured in to what has happened from COVID. And I think the way that these organizations had to quickly pivot their in-person events to virtual, they didn't necessarily have all of the time and resources to investigate what does that pivot look like? How do we adapt appropriately? And I think now, moving forward, I think no matter what, there can be a hybrid way of moving forward, but definitely, allocating staff and resources to understand what does motivate these supporters in an online, in a virtual way through a variety of different giving. So I think it's exciting because in a way we were forced here quicker than we probably imagined. But I think because of that, there's that, again, momentum that we can expand on and really learn from our experiences and from others.
Definitely. I think virtual events are a great way to engage your constituents, especially at a time like this, but just in general, with or without COVID or a pandemic or a crisis. But, it sounds easier than it probably is, just hosting over, taking your in-person event and making it virtual. I think there are a lot of components to it that nonprofits need to consider when they are making that transition. So, I mean, this is a tough question because I know there's no one recipe for success. So Cara, I'm gonna direct this to you. What components make a good virtual event? And do you have any recommendations for what to do and for what not to do from your experience with ACS?
Yeah, so I really think that, what we saw and I'll talk about Fit to Be specifically with our corporate partners. What we really saw as successful was the commitment from the C-suite leadership. You know, if you have that high-level executive that is communicating out and encouraging participation, and they're fully behind the event, then you tend to get more buy-in. We saw great success where if there were challenges or incentives or matching donations from the company, if you can encourage and get that type of level of buy-in, then the company or the participants will raise more dollars. If there is a match or there is some kind of incentive, they tend to raise more. The event has to be easy for the company to execute. The onboarding support and the support during the event has to be there. You have to have that point person that is very quick to communicate, because these companies, they don't want to wait. When they're asking a question, they don't want to wait until the next day or 2 days later to get an answer. They're, you know, immediate. They need somebody that can get back to them very quickly. I think clear and easy messaging to your participants about what the expectation is, what the event is, how it's going to be handled, a very simplified platform for them to be able to engage in, a way for them to share out, you know, whether it's sharing out on social media platforms or via email to their friends and family so that they can raise dollars that way. I think that, you know, to me, again, it really just was the buy-in from the top. The more support and clear messaging that you have, the more successful the people are going to be around you. And more than one communication, you have to communicate to people ongoing so that they know like how they're doing and how the challenge is going and where they are, you know, where their fundraising is, that kind of stuff that will spur them along to want to reach their goals.
Fantastic. Bryna, did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Cara made fantastic points. And just to add, I would say, you know, utilizing your data and your own technology to determine the best way to set up a virtual event. You know what types of events resonate with your audience. So, for example, younger generations may want to contribute quickly. So be sure your platform is optimized for mobile devices and has the ability to support a quick transaction. So a relief fund link or a donate now page may be the best way to engage with that group. But if you have more mature audiences that prefer richer content and want to have a transaction or an engagement for their donation, you can look at a virtual fitness tracking activity, you know, embedded into their fundraising, gamification, or the ability to contribute to an online auction. I mean, the possibilities are endless when you are creating a virtual experience, but ensuring that you're doing it for all your different types of supporters. And I agree, you know, don't have one type fits all approach. Make sure you plan. You may have the technology to quickly switch to virtual events, but you'll want to plan a way to communicate differently than how you would normally do for in-person events. And so you can be creative with virtual events. And I agree, top-down leadership, it's amazing to see how incredible the American Cancer Society did when leadership was engaged and contributing. Others will follow. It's an incredible, leadership example.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And, you know, we've talked about virtual events, how much opportunity there is with them moving forward. But I think one of the challenges of virtual events is the personal kind of human connection. You know, I think that nonprofits have a wider range of people that they can have fundraise for them because it is virtual and it's very accessible for many people if it's online. But with in-person events, you really got that emotional human interaction between the organization and its staff and the people who are fundraising. So, Bryna, can you share your thoughts on how nonprofits can somewhat mirror that engagement experience online?
Absolutely. I mean, I think having a space for participants to interact, share stories, post pictures, even as the American Cancer Society did with the real-time activity tracking, have a way for those participants and teams to connect and send motivational messages and group chats to encourage healthy competition, just finding ways for those participants to connect even through social media, as they don't have that same interaction as they would have for in-person events. But there's other opportunities, helping make your supporters feel part of the team. I would say, message them when you've met milestones. Use your technology to gather the data on your audience. A lot of organizations ask questions during the registration process. So celebrate those answers and use that language in your targeted email and engagement campaigns. There's the opportunity to maybe look at having an ambassador to represent the event. And it could be someone who's affected by your cause and how the funds raised will impact them, potentially different ambassadors for different locations or teams. And then I always talk about storytelling, really getting and using your platform that gives users the ability to tell their own stories through sharing abilities within the platform that will really help get their message out and engage more on a personal level to that donors or to that participants network of givers. And just continuing to just showcase on all mediums and digital platforms and channels how your organization is making a difference, which again, I think helps build a bit of, or a sense of community.
Really solid advice there, Bryna. Cara, talk about how ACS did this with their Fit to Be Cancer-Free Challenge.
Yeah, so as Bryna mentioned, storytelling is key to bringing, any campaign to life. With a virtual event, it's really an important component to connect with the audience. And so finding a way to integrate that story sharing, storytelling is so important. We utilized the chat feature through the app that we used in our latest challenge. So people were posting, they were out walking, and I know our company participated in the challenge as well, and I got to see where people live, pictures of the mountains and the lakes and where they were on the beach, their pets, their families. So in some ways it was actually provided a deeper connection to them personally versus just when I may see them at an event, because I actually got a little sneak peek into their daily lives as they were, going about their day and seeing how they, got their steps in today with their little ones or with their pets and things like that. And, so any way that you can help people be able to tell the story as they're on that journey for that virtual event, I think ties people to the other people, and it ties them back to why they're truly participating in this event in the first place. We had CEOs who, during the CEO challenge day, they were live tweeting. So as they walked, you followed along their journey, and they made stops, and they did videos, and it was just very encouraging. And there was one gentleman who was a survivor, and so he shared his story. And those stories are impactful, and they remind people why these events are taking place, that it's truly not just an event to have an event, it's really an event with a purpose. And it's very powerful for these people to share their stories. It's powerful for them, and it's powerful for the people who hear them. And so any way that you can integrate the possibilities for that, I think really helps to bring back that connection.
I think that aspect of the virtual experience is so engaging, because you, through the pictures and through the videos and just through any kind of messaging that comes from fundraisers, it just gives you a glimpse into their story and why this organization means so much to them. And I think that's super important, because that provides that emotional layer that really resonates with other people who might be going through the same thing. Awesome. So I have one more question for you guys, and this is something that I ask on every episode of the Nonprofit Voice. And Cara, I'll let you go first. We've talked about a lot today, but if there's one piece of advice you would give nonprofits, what would it be?
I think know your audience. I mean, and we've kind of woven that throughout the entire discussion today, but who your participants are, who the audience is that you're targeting. And so to ensure that whichever type of virtual event, that it really represents who you are as an organization, represents the event that you may have had in person, and, makes people still feel like, this is the organization that we know and love, and the way that we're participating still feels really good and unique, and it feels right to them. And so I really do think it's just about knowing who your audience is, and then making sure that you're providing the experience that truly represents who you are as an organization to them, so that they can still feel a part of it and feel good about the fundraising that they're doing for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that should be one of the first things, the most important things nonprofits think about as they're, building out events and creating messaging and communications around the event, because you need to know what your donors want, what they're interested in, what they're looking for in order to create something that they would be willing to be a part of. That's awesome. And, last but not least, Bryna, any advice?
I agree with both of you. I think, again, various ways to engage your audience. You're not tied to one place and structure. So use your imagination. Don't limit your virtual event to just one program even, or day or time. Expand your possibilities and really utilize all your options. I know that the Panorama platform is unique, and the digital fundraising opportunities there are to help. So it's important that your platform fits your need, and make sure your technology allows for engagement that creates that community, and just leading with your mission and impact, and talk about why your organization is important to the community.
Fabulous. Well, sadly, we're about out of time for today's episode, but I want to thank first our listeners for taking the time to listen to today's podcast. And of course, to you guys, Cara and Bryna, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show and talking to me, talking to our audience, and sharing your thoughts and insights and expertise on, the importance of virtual events, how to do them correctly, what nonprofits should think about. It's been much appreciated and so beneficial to, Nonprofit Pro and our audience.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Thanks.
And on behalf of Nonprofit Pro, we'll see you on the next episode of the Nonprofit Voice. Have a great day.